All right, hi everyone. This is Katie from Linguistico, and I'd like to welcome you to class. In this intermediate conversation class, we're going to talk about stress. All right, so what is stress? How does it impact your health and your life? And what stresses you out? We'll talk about all of these things. Many times, Americans or really any English speaker will talk about stress and what stresses them out. So it's important to know what stress is so that you can contribute to those conversations. So in this lesson, we're going to learn some vocabulary related to stress. And then we're going to look at some graphs of American stress levels to talk about who feels stress and why they feel stress. And then we'll watch a TED Talk about stress that might surprise you. Because everyone feels stress in their daily lives, this is an excellent discussion topic because everyone can relate to it. All right, so let's get started. All right, so I have a PowerPoint, so I'm going to screen share. And Anatoly, can you hear me?
Yes, hello again.
Hello again. How are you?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So Anatoly, did you hear the introduction to class?
Yes, about stress.
Right, about stress. And this is a good discussion topic because everyone can relate to stress. And let me screen share this PowerPoint with you really fast. First, we're going to look at some definitions of stress. So what stress means and some related vocabulary. All right, Hamada, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay, excellent. Hamada, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Okay. In this class, I'm great, thank you. In this class, we're going to be talking about stress. Okay, so we're going to talk about what stress is, how it impacts your daily life. So this is just a conversation class, really relaxed. And we're going to look at some graphs of stress in American life. And we're also going to watch a speech about stress. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, excellent. All right, so first of all, we're going to look at some definitions. So stress is defined as being a state of mental or emotional strain or tension resulting from demanding circumstances. If something is stressful, which I'll write in the chat box, if something is stressful, it's something that produces a lot of stress. So what are some things that are stressful in your daily life? For example, for me, sometimes it's stressful for me to manage my time and try to get everything done in one day. How about you guys?
I feel stress when I don't have enough time for doing something important. In that case, it is difficult to concentrate and to complete my job well.
Right. Right. So the same thing happens to me, Anatoly. When I feel like I don't have enough time, I get very overwhelmed and I can't concentrate. Hamada, what makes you feel stressed? What events in your life make you feel stressed?
Actually, studies makes me stressful.
Right, and we'll talk about this vocabulary word in a second, but a lot of times we say stressed or stressed out. So studying your college courses, Hamada, make you feel very stressed out. And Hamada, why do those courses make you feel stressed out? Well, Hamada, can you hear me? We'll come back to Hamada in a second. Whoops. Maybe he's having some technical difficulties. We'll see if he comes back in. So Anatoly, what are some events? Excuse me. What are some events in life that you think are that cause the most stress? For example, I think that one of the events that causes a lot of stress is moving, because it's a big change, and sometimes that can be very stressful. What are some other things that might cause a lot of stress, and not necessarily in your daily life, but in general?
In general, maybe I can give example from my study life. I mean, during the reading class, for example, for me much more difficult to understand text when I read aloud instead of if I read this text for my own. And lack of time, I think it is not main reason. Maybe when I read it on my own, I don't feel nervous because I can manage my time.
Excellent. Right. So that's one thing that can make us feel stress as well. If we have to perform in front of someone, like you said, if you have to read something out loud in a class, that can be stressful because maybe you don't understand it as well as when you read by yourself, or maybe you're nervous to read in front of other people. I know that happens to me sometimes. So that can be stressful too. And like we mentioned, so a lot of things can make us feel stress. And stress is a noun, but we can also use stress as a verb. And in American English in conversation, we'll pair this word with out. So for example, I could say something stresses me out, or something stresses you out, or that really stresses my parents out. So we usually have the person in between stress and out.
Yes.
So so you mentioned some of the things that stress you out, like not having enough time, reading out loud. Is there anything else that stresses you out?
When I have arguing with other people, if I can't persuade them, if I not able to describe my point of view, it is also a reason why when it might be a situation when I stressed out of but I don't know which word with which nouns which we need to use. Stress out.
It depends on what you're trying to say, because you could use any of them. It just depends on how you word your sentence. You can use it as a verb, like it stresses me out when I can't express my point of view. Or you can say, I feel stressed out when I can't express my point of view. Or if you want to describe, this is a word I forgot to put on the PowerPoint slide, but if you want to describe what the event is like, you can say, like, not being able to express myself is stressful. Because stressful is describing the thing that causes you stress. Does that make sense? I know that they're all very similar words and they can be easy to get confused.
Yes, I understand.
Okay, and then so like we were mentioning too, stressed out is also an adjective. So I can say, I feel so stressed out. For example, if I have to take a test, and I don't study very well, I feel so stressed out.
Mm-hmm.
And do you feel stressed out when you have to take a test or when you have an important meeting at work?
Yes, when we need to make a test, probably most of us feel stressed out.
Right, so when we have to take a test, most of us feel stressed out. I definitely do. um, right, but usually if I don't study enough is when I feel the most stressed out. And then we also have an expression called burned out or burnt out. Have you ever heard of this expression before? Sometimes it's written with an N or with a T instead of an EN, ED.
Maybe exhausted, similar word. I am not sure. I just guessing.
Right. This is a word that we use a lot with work, especially with work. So if we are just consumed by stress, we are so stressed out and we don't have enough time for anything else in our life other than work, we are burned out. So this happens a lot. For example, some people say that that teachers can get burned out because they're always working, or accountants might get, people who work with taxes and things might get burned out because they work very, very long hours. So Anatoly, have you ever felt burned out before?
Yes, because I work as an accountant.
Oh, really?
And you mentioned this professional. Yes, sometimes. Yes, when we need prepare financial report or tax report for a very short time, and especially if we found before that, for example, mistake or other problem, we don't have enough documents, information, yes, and we
Right.
need to work a very extensive and burnt out. Is it verb? Yes.
Let's see. It's usually used as an adjective, so you can say like I get burned out or I feel burned out on something.
Okay.
You can use it as a verb, like well, I'm trying to think if you can or not.
I feel
You can,
burnt out in that situation. In
right,
in
exactly.
simulation, in situation which I described.
Right. Some people use it as a verb, like I burned out. It's not as common though. Like I burned out on teaching, or I burned out on accounting, meaning that it became so overwhelming that you quit. But usually we use it as an adjective, like I got burned out on that. Right. So, like you mentioned, it happens a lot with jobs that are long hours. However, usually when we say burned out, you can be burned out on something and still work in that field, but a lot of times when people feel burned out, they quit their job. But like you mentioned, accounting has very long hours, especially if someone makes a mistake and you have to correct it, then it's very stressful. Right. So I understand that. My brother is an accountant, and he's not burned out, but he does get stressed out sometimes. So what are some other things that might stress some people out? What about this here?
If it stressed me out when I watch bad news on TV.
Okay, right. So it stresses you out when you watch bad news on TV. That stresses me out too because it's very depressing, right? And then what about money? Do you think that money can stress you out?
Yes, lack of money could be also reason for feeling of stressing people out.
Mm-hmm. Exactly right, because sometimes that can be very stressful if you don't know how to pay the bills. Um, if you're sick, sometimes you might feel stressed out. And what about your job? Um, do you think that your job, not necessarily your job, but do you think that people's jobs are a big source of stress?
Yes, but I read not long time ago article from newspaper, and the conclusion of this article was that without stresses, people live less than being involved in active life,
Mm-hmm.
constantly coping with the stresses. It is a little opposite
Right. It's
which we discussed.
right. It's something that like you wouldn't think that it would be like that. It's kind of opposite of what you would think. So in that study, they showed that people who had stress lived longer than people who didn't have any stress.
Yes, yes.
Oh wow, that's
And the
interesting.
reason because uh, they live in active temp in active rhythm
Hmm.
people, and in that case they do more physical exercises and mental exercises.
Right, and that
And
makes
that
sense because
second example, stresses is like mental exercises.
mhm. Right, so that's exactly true too. That a lot of people don't think about because some people think that if they have no stress in their life that they'll be happy, but that's not good for you physically or mentally if you just kind of sit around all day and do nothing. But right, so that's kind of surprising, but you're right. Like if you are doing new activities, it can be stressful, but that can be good stress. Um, So we'll see that a little bit in our TED Talk too. Some of the health concerns for stress, if it's really as bad as we think it is. Let's see, I think Hamada is in here. Hamada, can you hear me? See, Hamada, I'll check in with you. Yes, okay, excellent. We're just finishing up some of the vocabulary with stress and talking about some of the things that stress us out. Okay, so if we look at this graph, we talked about some of the things that stress us out. But there's a news network that I highly recommend called NPR, which is a news network in the United States that is non-for-profit, and they do a lot of really interesting studies. And they showed what some of the most stressful things are for Americans. And do any of these events surprise you?
Illness and disease, death of loved one, problem with work, life change of or transitions, family events or issues, problems with personal relationships. I think for me it's similar.
Hmm. Right. Same here. I think that illness and disease is very stressful. I'm kind of surprised that that the percentages aren't as high as I thought they would be. So, for example, only 13% of people said that um, that problems with work were very stressful.
Mm.
Hmm.
Yes,
So I
yes.
was,
Maybe you are right because it is a source for money, a source for living. I mean, a wage,
mhm.
money which we received from work, and yes, it could be on the same level
Right.
with the top one.
Hmm. Right. So it kind of depends on the person as well, like the individual person and what stresses them out. Because do you notice maybe some of your friends get very, very stressed out and some of your friends are very relaxed all the time? Do you notice that?
Yes, everybody is different. and um, I think it is very important to train our ability to cope with stresses.
Mhm. Right, exactly. That is important to train ourselves to cope with stress, um, and uh, we'll talk a little bit too in the next couple slides about what we can do to cope with stress. And we kind of talked too about good and bad stress. So, Anatoly, you mentioned that you think stress can be good because of the study that you read.
Yes.
Hmm. And so we'll hear about that in the video too. And so this slide is kind of about coping with stress. So a lot of people will do things when they're stressed. So what do you do when you're stressed? How do you cope with stress?
I think the second example, sleeping, is
Hmm.
a good cure for coping with stress.
Hmm. Right, I agree because sometimes if you don't get enough sleep, that can be very stressful just by itself. So if you get more sleep, that can help.
Yes,
Um,
and I know people who like to play in actions in computer games, maybe uh, with lots of wars scenes,
mhm.
and it helps them to cope with stress because they reveal their energy in the computer games, and it helps them to not to be nervous, not to revealing their feelings when it is necessary to stay calm, for example.
Mhm. Exactly right. So some people, we can say they unleash their frustrations or they unleash their stress in a video game. And the video game might be violence and have war scenes or anything like that. But for them, it's a way to get all of those feelings out and not, hurt someone in real life with their stress.
Yes, and I think studying a foreign language, it is also a good way for coping with stress, because during the studying we upload to different environment, and we feel like we above the world, maybe around the world, because it is and usually we discuss about things which we don't see in everyday life.
Hmm.
We change theme for our of thinking about bad events, but something bad which happened with us, uh, and it's also good and useful in the same time.
Right, so that's a very good point too, Anatoly, that sometimes if you learn a foreign language and you get to know about the culture from from other places, then that can give you a broader mindset, and so you see things that you didn't see before. Maybe you feel more connected with the world, and you can approach your problems from a different perspective. And let's see, Hamada, what are some things that you do when you feel stressed?
Usually I play sports.
Okay, usually you play sports, and what kind of sports do you play, Hamada?
I play football and
O-
basketball.
Okay, and how do you think this makes you feel less stressed out?
Actually, you put all your energy on it, so all the pressure goes away.
Exactly, right. So when you're exercising, that's one of the things that people recommend to do a lot when you're stressed out. Um, it helps because you're putting all of your energy into working out or into playing a sport, and then so you don't feel that stress later. Mhm. Excellent. And let's see. And what are some other things from these pictures that people do when they feel stressed out? Do you know anyone that eats when they feel stressed out?
I read about it. We discussed about it in one class, but maybe it is not so common. But yes, for somebody it could be very good. It depends so on uh, mm, physical condition of people. For somebody, it is a good way.
Right, so it depends on the physical condition of someone. So if they're overweight, maybe it's not a good idea to eat when you're stressed out. But for some people, it might be okay. And some of it might depend on what they eat when they're stressed out too.
Yes.
So for example, are there any kind of foods that you crave when you are stressed out? To crave something is like you really, really want it.
I don't know. I thinking now about, for example, ice cream, because eating ice cream associate with links with something pleasant, with vacation, etc. And maybe it could be good.
Exactly, right. So a lot of times we'll eat things that we have positive memories of, like ice cream, you think of vacation, of summer, of happy things. Um, or I think a lot of times too, people eat things with sugar. Um, so I think when you're stressed out, a lot of times you crave sugary things. Like I don't really hear of people who are stressed out and they crave salad. And some other people, they might go on Facebook or watch TV or they get angry with people when they're stressed. Um, and we'll see some of the common things that people did. Actually, one of the most common things that people did when they were stressed was that they actually slept less. Does that surprise you? Let's see, Hamada, does it surprise you that people sleep less when they're stressed out?
No, there is no wonder people could lose their sleeping time when this stressed out.
Right, so sometimes when you're stressed out, it's really hard to get to sleep. And then people actually eat less too. I think that was kind of surprising. Are there any things that surprise you on here? Let me try to zoom in. So sleeping less, eating less. Are there any things that surprise you on this list?
Attending religious services or praying more than usual.
So that
How,
surprises you, Hamada?
yes, how does it can make me stressless?
Right, so how does it, you can say, how can it reduce my stress? How does that, right, that's a good question. How does it make you get rid of stress? I think that sometimes people, when they go to church, they might feel more at peace. They might feel calmer and more relaxed. Does that make sense, Hamada?
Yes, yes.
Is there anything else that surprises you on this list or anything that you have comments about?
Nope.
No. Anatoly, do you have any things that you're surprised about on this list, or?
Mm, I think no.
Right. So no, not for me either. I think that they're pretty common things that we all do. And then so before we watch our video, we're just going to take a quick look at another chart. Who do you guys think is who experiences more stress, men or women, and why?
I think men
Okay.
have more experience than women. Women. I think I read about researchers' conclusion about it. The reason because usually men is the main source of money for family.
Mm-hmm. So do you think that men are more stressed out or less stressed out?
More stressed out.
More stressed out because they have the responsibility to get
Yes,
money for the family.
yes.
Okay. And then Hamada, what do you think? Do you think men or women are more stressed out, and why?
I think women more stressed out.
Okay, and why do you think that?
It appears that women always cry a lot. And,
Okay.
they ate chocolate a lot.
All right, so they cry a lot. They might get very emotional. What do you guys think about responsibilities and how that might play in? Because Anatoly said that that men are usually in charge of they're usually what we call the breadwinner of a family. The breadwinner is the person who brings the most money home, and that might be stressful. But women, a lot of times, are in charge of taking care of the children and doing housework, and then they also have jobs. So do you think that might impact stress?
Yes, it is also a source of stress, but possibility to to cry for women on public. Maybe it is a possibility to cope with the stress because their emotions appears and after that energy became neutral like
Okay.
this.
No, that's a good point, Anatoly. I didn't think about that, but you're right that women, it's a lot more accepted for them to show their feelings in public, so they can cry in public or get upset, and people usually comfort them. Whereas what happens with men? Is it normal for a man to cry in public, Kamala? Or let's see, Anna. Oops. Hamada left us again. We'll see if Hamada comes back. But right, like you were saying, Anatoly, so for example, in Russia, can a man express his feelings in the same way that a woman does? Or does he feel like he has to keep them inside?
He has to keep it inside.
Mm-hmm. Right. And sometimes we can say he has to bottle up his feelings. Like it's something in a bottle and it can't leave. So actually, I found this kind of interesting. Oh, whoops, sorry. This one right here. If you look at this chart, whoops, I forget which one. Oh, whoops, let me see if I can find it really fast. Sorry. There was a chart with men and women. Oh, I can't find it now. Let's see. I thought I put it on here, but I think that I accidentally got rid of it. But it showed that women are usually stressed out more than men are. And I thought that was interesting. Let me see if I can find the chart. Right. So let me go back to this chart. I just forgot. I cut off the top. So this chart right here is for men. This column, and this column is for women. So you can see that in most of the columns, like feeling like they have too many responsibilities, women are actually, they're more stressed out in almost every category. So does that surprise you? Did you think that it would be men?
Yes, it surprised me because, as I mentioned before, I read article with opposite conclusion.
Mm-hmm. Right. So your article said a different conclusion. So this might be just based on a different study. So it kind of depends on what study you look at as well. And one more question before we start the video: who do you like? What age group do you think gets most stressed out? Like people in their 20s, in their 30s?
Hmm. Uh, Maybe young people
Young people?
more more stressed out because
Mm-hmm.
they didn't know how they could cope with stresses.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly. Um, and there's actually some categories where young people are more stressed out, like feeling like they have too many responsibilities. Um, and so you can kind of see the different categories. Like young people are stressed out about having too many responsibilities, but older
Mhm.
people are more stressed out about their health. And if you want to check out this website after class, you can go to the link, and it will kind of explain things. And it's a really interesting study that they did.
Okay, interesting. Yes, really.
Okay. Let's see. Fernando, can you hear me?
I hear you clearly and loud.
Okay. Hi, Fernando. How are you?
Excellent. And you?
I'm great, thank you. We were just talking about stress and what are some of the things that stress us out. And now we're actually going to watch a YouTube video about stress. And it's a TED Talk. And it might surprise you what this woman has to say about stress. Um,
Okay, nice.
okay? All right, so, oops. So Fernando, for example, do you think that stress is good for your health or bad for your health?
Definitely, I think it's
Oh, sorry about that, Fernando. Could you repeat that, please?
okay. Yeah, I think it's bad for the health of anybody because, well, I mean, being on a stress state, I mean, I have seen cases how that affects your health, your well, different types of things in your mind, and also you cannot sleep very well, and I mean, you feel not good.
Okay, excellent. So Fernando, you think that it's negative, that it impacts your sleep. There are also some physical things that go on when you're stressed, like your heart beats faster, sometimes you tense up. And Anatoly mentioned that he thinks that stress might be good because he read a study about it. So we'll see what this person has to say. Right. So as you can see, what was the study that she is referencing? What did they measure in this study?
The risk of people to die if they are suffering a lot of stress.
Right. So they first asked people if they felt a lot of stress, like rating their level of stress, like mild, moderate, high, and then they found out who died, and then what happened, Anatoly?
The first scene was when she asked the people, audience, to raise their hands if they have lots of stresses or less stresses. And as she said about herself, most of audience rose their hands that they have lots of stress.
Right. So that was something that I noticed too, that she said, raise your hand if you feel a little stress or a lot of stress. And a lot of people rose their hands, or sorry, a lot of people raised their hands. A lot of people raised their hands when she said, do you feel a lot of stress? So a lot of people in the audience did feel very stressed. They felt very stressed out. But what did the study show? How did stress impact these people's health? Fernando?
Just, I mean, right now, I'm not sure about what she's saying, because this is I want to see the whole video first before giving my opinion, and I will tell you why.
Okay.
Because she's right now as any kind of seller. A seller is a person who sells things, right? So she's giving you, okay, the best of this is this, and you have to not worry about any kind of things. But the tricky thing until this point of the video is that she only has mentioned well, she's just comparing stressed people with other people that is suffering a lot of stress. Yeah, and she's telling, okay, just the people that thought that the stress is harmful for its own health will take more risks to die than the others. But she's not comparing people that suffers a lot of stress versus people that has a relaxed lifestyle. So,
Yes, true.
I would like to see that comparison before before having or concluding something uh, in favor or against of the stress definition that she's giving.
Okay, that's a good point, right? Because she hasn't compared. I think she might compare it at. I think I might have cut off her sentence. I think she might mention people who are not stressed, but let me see if she mentions that. But like you said, Fernando, that she was comparing people who were stressed. And what was the difference between these two groups? Both were stressed, but what did they think about stress that was different? Anatoly or Fernando?
As I understood, she made conclusion that it doesn't matter for people if they have a lot of stress or less stress. The most important how is their attitude to the stress. If
Right, exactly.
they believe in harm of stress or not.
Right. So that's exactly what she was trying to discuss, Anatoly, was that her belief or her hypothesis is that stress isn't bad, but what is bad is your attitude towards stress. And so the people who had a negative attitude towards their stress had a higher risk of dying. So we'll see though, Fernando, if she mentions people who are not stressed and see if it compares. So let's watch a little bit more of the video and see. Okay, so here she's talking about part of the study where their participants had to, what did they have to do as part of this experiment? They had to give a speech about
their weaknesses.
Right, about their weaknesses. And what did the people who were judging them do? Anatoly?
I'm not sure that I understood that part.
Okay, we'll explain it a little bit. She's talking about part of a study where people were put in a situation to get them stressed out, to test how they responded to stress. So there were people, and they had to give a speech about their personal weaknesses, like, oh, I'm really bad at managing my time, or I'm a perfectionist. And they had to give this speech in front of an audience with a camera and with bright lights. And the judges of the speech were supposed to look very, very mean. So they would, sit like this and be like, just give nonverbal feedback that looked very negative, so that they thought they were doing a bad job. So we'll see how the people responded in the study. So how would you feel if you were put in this experiment? If you had to do all of these things very quickly and people were judging you, how would you feel?
I will feel like, how do you say what you are laughing a lot, but how do you express that feeling? It's funny, but I don't know. I will feel like I having a lot of fun instead of being stressed.
Really? So you wouldn't feel stressed out at all. You would just have fun with it.
Yeah, I mean that's another point. I just wanted to tell you about this. I mean, it depends. At the same time, it depends about the definition of stress of each people, because I mean I don't know if she's just talking about usually stressing situations for most part of the people, or she's talking about actually the people under those situations they feel it stress.
Right. I think that here she's talking about how the people in those situations felt stressed. So the people who had to do the math and to give a speech, that they felt very stressed out. Anatoly, how would you feel if you were in this situation?
I imagine situation may be similar when, for example, in the class, one student read not so quickly as others, and teacher constantly mentioned, "Can you be faster? Please look to your followers, your classmates. They do it perfect. You need to train again."
Right. That's an excellent example. So that's something that stresses people out, right? Do you think that the person who is reading slowly feels stressed out when the teacher says, "You have to read faster. Come on, let's go."
Yeah, yes. I think yes.
Right. I think so too. So right, that's a good analogy to the experiment that she does. So sometimes teachers can make students feel stressed out, and they don't mean to. Hopefully, I don't, but but we'll see
No.
what happened to these participants. Okay, so here she mentions an important thing that changes physically in our bodies with stress. So how does our body usually respond if we think that stress is bad for us? What happens to our heart?
It starts beating faster.
Okay, it starts beating faster, Fernando. And what else happens, Anatoly? The blood vessels, what do they do?
It maybe became more narrow. The road, I don't know how we can call this part of our body.
We can say, right, I understand what you're saying. They become more narrow. We can say that they constrict. So something
Yes.
expands and it constricts. So our blood vessels constrict. And why is that bad when our blood vessels constrict in our heart?
Because our body is not able to exist in not comfortable condition. Maybe it is able, but it could be a source for future problems.
Right, exactly. So like you mentioned, Anatoly, it's not natural or comfortable for our body to be in that position all of the time. It's normal occasionally if there's danger or something, but all of the time, if we're stressed out a lot, it's not healthy for our body to be in that position, and it can actually lead to heart attacks. But what happened when people saw their stress as positive? What happened to their blood vessels?
It became more adaptive to stresses.
Right, exactly. So they became adaptive to stress, and did they constrict? Do you
Constrict.
remember? To
Yes.
get smaller?
To becomes. I don't know. Maybe it is possible to become constrict and returning to the normal form of this organ.
Okay, so maybe it returned to its normal form. Fernando, did you catch in the video what happens to your blood vessels when you see your stress as a good thing?
Yeah, they return to a more comfortable position. So they, I think, I don't know, the opposite of constrict is
Expand.
okay. So your blood vessels just expand to a more healthier situation. That's more a healthier situation than the other. But your heart keeps beating faster, so you have a better blood circulation.
Right, exactly. That's a very good explanation, Fernando. So when you see your stress is positive, then your heart still beats really fast, but your blood vessels, they don't constrict. So they're still in their normal position. So that means that you have better circulation of your blood throughout your body, and it means that you have less of a risk of a heart attack or any kind of problem like that.
Yes.
So does this news surprise you?
Well, yeah, actually, yes. I mean, I haven't considered the to take how to take advantage about the stress, but I mean, I have feel a couple times, but I didn't realize that what was happening in that moment. But yes, I mean, in that part, she's totally right that stress can make you feel more prepared for some situations, but also I think that it's bad to be constantly on a stress situations. I mean, once in a while or sometimes it's good, but just being all the time just stressed, I think it's bad for your health.
Right, exactly, and I agree with that too. And Anatoly, did this news surprise you? Probably not because you knew that stress was okay for you, but did you learn anything new in this video?
Yes, it is a good listening practice and interesting subject for discussion. Yes.
So did you know that that there were actually physical changes in your body when you learned to view stress as positive, or did you know about any of that?
I guessed before. I thought that stress is not always bad, and my minds also were about how it physically, what physical reasons could be for that conclusion.
Right,
Maybe.
exactly. Right. So so like you knew that stress was good for you in certain circumstances, but maybe you weren't sure like physically in the body what went on to make stress good for you. Right. So this is kind of an interesting video, and like you mentioned too, Fernando, that that sometimes before you got stressed out, like before a test, and what were some of the things that happened to you? Was your heart beating fast? What were some things that happened physically?
I mean, yes. I mean, some things that happens to me, as you mentioned, my heart starts beating faster. Sometimes I just start also breathing faster, and I feel like okay, or sometimes I feel like nervous. So that's some things that happens to me.
Right. So the same thing happens to me. Sometimes if we breathe very quickly, like that's we call that hyperventilating.
Hyperventilating.
Okay. Right. So you could say I started hyperventilating. Sometimes your palms get sweaty. Do you ever have that happen to you, Anatoly, when you take a test or you're really stressed out? Do you have any physical symptoms of stress?
Yes, I think yes. By the way, we studied yesterday about wedding, and we studied expression cold feet.
Right.
It is similar.
Right. So if you have cold feet, you might get stressed out. Fernando, this was an expression in our wedding class the other day, that if someone gets cold feet, it means that they don't know if they want to be married.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
Okay.
before a wedding, you can get cold feet. And Anatoly, you think that if someone has cold feet, they get stressed out?
Yes, it could be.
Right. I think so too. And both of you mentioned too that like you have felt these symptoms before, like your heart beats fast or you get sweaty. And when this happens, have you seen it as a positive thing or a negative thing or just neutral? You don't really think about it.
Well, I think that when that happens, if I'm going to take a kind of test that is written in a paper, so I consider it bad because I consider that I have to be relaxed on that kind of situations. But if that involves a physical, I mean, like a physical action, or I have to do something with my hands or raise something, or I don't know what, but that could be helpful because I mean I already got my heart beating faster and also the adrenaline raise ups. So my body is like prepared for any kind of physical challenge.
Okay, excellent, right. And this is really the reason that your body feels stressed out is because many years ago your body would get stressed out and have this response with your heart beating fast and all of these physical symptoms when there was danger. And when you needed to act physically, like for example, to hunt an animal or to defend yourself. Anatoly, what do you think? How have you viewed these symptoms, like your heart beating fast?
Mostly I felt negative about that feelings, but also it is a sign which our body gives us. Take a pause, drink a cup of coffee, and a little relaxing time could help cope.
Right. Right. Exactly. So it might be a sign from our body to to relax and take it easy. I actually had a psychology professor who said she said the same thing as this person giving the speech, and he said that, for example, when your heartbeat is beating fast, it's helping you because your body is going through your blood is going through your body faster. And when you hyperventilate, that's trying to get you more oxygen so you can think better. So he tried to put it in a very positive way, which I thought was interesting, to see these symptoms as a positive thing rather than a negative thing. We're almost out of time, guys, but did you learn anything today that surprised you or changed the way that you think?
Yeah, definitely about how to take advantage of the stress situation, and also that stress is not necessarily something bad in all the situations. It depends on the situation, yes, but I mean you can always take advantage of that, and yes, that was new for me.
Right, and I was surprised too when I saw the video for the first time. Anatoly, was there anything in this video or in this lesson that surprised you or something new that you learned?
Yes, when we know problem, when we prepare it for exploring, when we divide it for the piece and explore each piece, it is a very good way to find solution.
Right, exactly. So when we sometimes we say when we analyze a problem, when we look at the little pieces, when we analyze it, then we can figure out a solution. So, for example, some people just feel stressed and they don't know the reasons behind it. But when you look at every little piece, then you can find a solution. And what do you guys think is the solution? Do you think it's trying to do things to feel less stressed out, or just learning to think positively about stress?
Well, I think that it's just about to think positive and also to take advantage of the situations. I mean, to try to turn something bad into something good, and yes, to take advantage about it.
Right. Okay. So to take advantage, to think of it as something good. And what do you think, Anatoly, are some of the solutions to the stress problem?
I also thinking about positive solution and positive effect of being aware of resource or sources of stresses.
Okay, so like for example, if you're feeling stressed out because you don't have certain resources, then to make sure to get those the next time so you don't feel stressed out. Is that what you're saying?
No, we don't need to be afraid of being under stress. We need to accept it as a part of our life, everyday life.
Exactly, right. And that was kind of the thing that you thought too at the beginning of the lesson too, Anatoly. So, so this video kind of just affirms what you thought, that stress is just a part of life, and it's not about getting rid of stress, but rather learning to see it as positive. So, we're almost out of time, guys, but I hope that you learned something from this video, found it as interesting as I did. So, thank you both for participating in the conversation.
Thank you very much, Kathy.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much as well. I mean, it was very useful, and I learned a lot of new things. So yes, and definitely, now that you put the link just on the chat group, I will go and I will finish to see this video because it's really interesting.
Right, and that's too one thing, Anatoly. I put the link to the rest of the video in the chat box because it explains some other studies. Right, it explains another study about stress. It's really interesting. All right, so also if you guys can go to my leave me feedback on Linguistico, that would be great. You can do it from your dashboard or from your if you go on my profile. You can do it both ways. All right, so I'll see you guys later, and I have a class at 10 o'clock tonight Eastern Standard Time if you would like to join.
Thank you very much.
Nice.
Goodbye.
All right, thank you guys.
Take care.
Bye. Take care.
Bye-bye.
You too.